Have you ever found yourself exhausted from constant social obligations, draining interactions, or the pressure to maintain relationships that don't truly serve you? If so, you're not alone. I know this feeling all too well. At 65, I made a bold decision to limit interactions with certain neighbors and even some family members. Not out of anger or resentment, but out of a deep desire for peace, fulfillment, and true joy. For years, I believed I had to be available for everyone. I thought maintaining relationships, no matter how one-sided or exhausting, was just part of life. But one day, I asked myself, is this really how I want to spend my time? The answer was clear, and once I started setting boundaries, everything changed. I finally had time to focus on what truly matters, whether it's nurturing meaningful connections, pursuing personal passions, or simply enjoying the quiet moments of life. And you know what? I've never felt more at peace. If you've ever felt obligated to keep relationships out of guilt, habit, or societal expectations, I encourage you to take a step back and reflect. Are these relationships adding value to your life? Or are they taking more than they give? You have the right to choose who you allow into your space. This journey has been eye-opening, and I'd love to share more of my insights with you. If this message resonates, consider subscribing to Senior Life Unlocked, where we talk about living life on your terms, embracing personal freedom, and making the most of every chapter. Let's navigate this journey together. Now, let's dive deeper into this topic. Chapter 1. Time becomes more precious with age. When we're younger, we tend to give away our time freely. We attend social events out of obligation, engage in small talk, and go out of our way to help others, often without considering the true cost to our well-being. But as we grow older, something profound happens. We begin to realize just how limited our time is. At 65, I no longer take time for granted. Every hour spent in an unfulfilling conversation or a stressful interaction is an hour I can never get back. I look back on the countless favors I did for neighbors who rarely reciprocated, the social gatherings where I felt more drained than fulfilled, and the family events where tension outweighed joy. I used to believe that being constantly available was a sign of kindness and generosity. But now, I see that my time is my most valuable asset, and I must guard it wisely. The truth is, not all relationships add value to our lives. Some people uplift us, while others drain us. Some conversations leave us inspired, while others leave us exhausted. It took me years to understand that setting boundaries doesn't mean I'm selfish. It means I respect myself enough to choose how I spend my time. Lessons learned. Checkmark. Not all relationships are worth maintaining. If a connection feels one-sided or draining, it's okay to step away. Checkmark. Saying no isn't selfish, it's necessary. We owe it to ourselves to prioritize our own well-being. Checkmark. Time should be spent with intention, whether it's with people who bring joy or in solitude doing what we love. Our time should feel meaningful. A real-life example. A few years ago, I had a neighbor who constantly asked for favors, rides to the store, help with home repairs, and even babysitting. At first, I helped willingly, believing that being a good neighbor meant always saying yes. But over time, I noticed a pattern. The favors were never returned. The gratitude was minimal, and my own needs were being pushed aside. One day, after yet another request, I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that." The discomfort in the air was immediate, but what followed was an incredible sense of relief. The world didn't end, the neighbor moved on, and I realized something powerful. My time is mine to protect. Now, instead of filling my days with obligations that drain me, I spend time doing things that truly bring me joy, reading, exploring new hobbies, and surrounding myself with people who uplift and appreciate me. Chapter 2. Boundaries are essential. Boundaries are not walls designed to shut people out, they are gates we control, allowing us to decide who and what enters our lives. They are an act of self-respect, a way of protecting our time, energy, and emotional well-being. In my younger years, I felt obligated to be available to everyone, family, friends, neighbors. I believed that saying yes was a sign of kindness and generosity. If someone needed help, I was there. If a friend wanted to vent, I listened for hours. If a neighbor needed a favor, I rarely hesitated. I thought this was simply part of being a good person. But constantly giving my time, energy, and emotional space to others left me feeling exhausted, depleted, and, at times, even resentful. I would often wonder, why do I feel so drained? Why do I give so much and receive so little in return? The truth was, I had never set clear boundaries. I allowed others to take priority over my own well-being. The challenge of setting boundaries. When I first started establishing limits, it wasn't easy. I felt guilty saying no. I worried about disappointing people or coming across as selfish. But over time, I realized that setting boundaries wasn't about rejecting others, it was about honoring myself. By making a conscious decision to surround myself with people who respected my time and energy, I felt lighter, freer, and more at peace. I no longer carried the emotional burden of maintaining relationships that drained me. Instead, I focused on connections that uplifted me. Practical tips for setting boundaries. Checkmark: be clear and direct about your limits. You don't have to explain or justify your decisions. Your well-being is reason enough. Checkmark: practice saying no without guilt. A simple, polite, "I can't commit to that," is enough. You don't owe anyone an elaborate explanation. Checkmark: limit interactions with negative individuals. If someone consistently brings negativity into your life, it's okay to step back and protect your peace. A personal story. I once had a family member who frequently called me just to vent, long conversations filled with complaints, frustration, and negativity. Every time we spoke, I felt emotionally drained. I would hang up the phone feeling heavy, as if I had absorbed all of their stress while carrying my own. One day, I made the decision to protect my emotional well-being. The next time they called, I gently but firmly said, "I understand that you need to talk, but I can't always be available for these kinds of conversations. I need to take care of my own mental space too." At first, they were upset. They accused me of not caring, of being distant. But over time, something interesting happened, because I no longer made myself constantly available for negativity. Our relationship actually improved. When we did talk, our conversations became more balanced, and I no longer felt resentment. Now, I make sure that my time and energy are spent in ways that bring me joy, peace, and fulfillment. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. If you've ever struggled with setting boundaries, I encourage you to start small. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. And remember, protecting your time and energy isn't just an act of self-care, it's an act of self-respect. Chapter 3. The truth about neighbors. One of the biggest myths we're told is that good neighbors should always be involved in each other's lives. That true community means constant interaction, socializing, and helping out whenever needed. While this may work for some, I've learned that not all neighborly relationships are beneficial. In fact, many can be exhausting. Some neighbors gossip endlessly, draining our energy with negative talk. Others expect constant favors, always needing something but never giving in return. Then there are those who don't respect personal boundaries, showing up unannounced, inviting themselves in, or lingering far too long when all you wanted was a quick hello. When I was younger, I felt pressured to engage in these interactions. I didn't want to seem rude, so I listened to endless complaints, attended gatherings I didn't enjoy, and let others occupy more of my time than I was comfortable with. But at 65, I have no patience for this anymore. I've come to realize that just because someone lives near me doesn't mean they should have unlimited access to my time and energy. Now, I maintain a polite but distant relationship with most of my neighbors. I exchange pleasantries when I see them, but I don't feel obligated to engage in long conversations or attend every neighborhood event. This simple shift has given me an incredible sense of freedom. What I've learned: checkmark: being neighborly doesn't mean sacrificing your peace. You can be polite without getting drawn into unnecessary drama or obligations. Checkmark: not every relationship needs to be deep or long-lasting. Some people are meant to stay acquaintances, and that's perfectly okay. Checkmark: your home should be your sanctuary, protect it. If you don't want unexpected visitors or draining conversations, it's okay to set boundaries. A personal story. I once had a neighbor who would stop by unannounced to chat for hours. At first, I thought I was just being a good neighbor by entertaining their visits. But over time, I started to feel trapped in my own home. I dreaded hearing the knock at my door because I knew it meant another long, energy-draining conversation. Eventually, I made a change. I started keeping my interactions brief, giving simple, polite responses, and making it clear that I was busy. I stopped answering the door when I needed quiet time, no longer feeling obligated to be constantly available. At first, they seemed confused, but over time, they got the message. The visits became less frequent, and I reclaimed my personal space. Now, my home is exactly what it should be, a place of peace, rest, and comfort. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you are not obligated to be constantly available just because someone happens to live nearby. Chapter 4. Family isn't always easy. We often hear the phrase, family is everything. Society teaches us that no matter what, we should always be there for family. But the truth is, not all family relationships are healthy, and some can be more draining than fulfilling. Over the years, I've had to come to terms with the fact that some family members bring more stress than joy. Some only reach out when they need something, never checking in just to see how I'm doing. Others create unnecessary drama, criticize my choices, or bring negativity into every conversation. And for a long time, I felt obligated to maintain these relationships, even at the cost of my own well-being. But at 65, I've learned something important: it's okay to prioritize peace over obligation. Letting go of unhealthy family ties doesn't mean I don't love or care about them. It simply means that I refuse to let certain relationships drain me emotionally. I now choose to focus on relationships that are built on mutual respect, kindness, and support, whether they are with blood relatives or people I consider my chosen family. What helps? Checkmark letting go of guilt when distancing from toxic relatives. You don't owe anyone your time if they continually disrespect or hurt you. Checkmark valuing quality relationships over obligatory ones. A healthy, supportive friend can be more of a family member than a relative who only takes. Checkmark accepting that some family bonds are not meant to last. Some relationships naturally fade, and forcing them only creates resentment. A personal insight. I once had a distant relative who would constantly criticize my life choices, how I spent my time, how I managed my finances, even my personal hobbies. Yet, whenever they needed help, they had no problem calling me for support, expecting me to drop everything. For years, I tolerated it, telling myself, that's just how they are. Or, family is family. But every interaction left me feeling drained and frustrated. Eventually, I had to make a choice: continue feeling obligated, or step back and reclaim my peace. It wasn't easy at first. I felt guilty for creating distance. But over time, I realized that I wasn't abandoning them. I was simply choosing to protect my emotional well-being. And as I did, something incredible happened. I felt lighter. I had more energy for the people who truly mattered, the ones who supported and uplifted me instead of bringing me down. Now, I invest my time and love into the relationships that bring me joy, warmth, and genuine connection, because at this stage in life, I've learned that family isn't about blood, it's about the people who truly care. Chapter 5. The Joy of Solitude. Many people fear solitude, associating it with loneliness or isolation. But over the years, I've learned to embrace it. In fact, I now see solitude as a gift, an opportunity to slow down, breathe, and truly connect with myself. There is a profound peace in being alone, free from external pressures, unnecessary obligations, or the need to constantly engage with others. Solitude is not about cutting off the world. It's about intentional living, choosing when and how to interact with others, rather than feeling forced into constant socialization. When I spend time alone, I'm not lonely, I'm at peace. For most of my life, I felt the need to fill every moment with activity or conversation. I thought being alone meant I was missing out. But now, I cherish quiet moments as some of the most meaningful parts of my day. In solitude, I find time to reflect, to enjoy life's simple pleasures, and to focus on what truly matters. It's in these moments of stillness that I feel the most connected to myself, to nature, and to a sense of inner peace. How to enjoy solitude. Checkmark. Take time for quiet walks or moments in nature. The sound of rustling leaves, birdsong, or waves can be more comforting than any conversation. Checkmark. Engage in hobbies that bring personal joy. Reading, painting, gardening, or simply listening to music can be incredibly fulfilling. Checkmark. Appreciate the stillness without seeking distraction. Instead of filling every moment with noise, TV, phones, or social media, embrace the silence and let your mind wander. A personal example. One of my favorite moments is sitting in my garden early in the morning, sipping coffee, and watching the sunrise. The world is quiet, the air is crisp, and for those few minutes, nothing else matters. There's no pressure to talk, to entertain, or to be anywhere else. It's a simple pleasure, yet it brings me more happiness than any forced social gathering ever could. In those moments, I feel completely at peace, grateful for the time I have, the space I've created, and the freedom to simply be. If you've ever felt uneasy about spending time alone, I encourage you to give it a chance. Solitude isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. Conclusion: choosing peace over obligation. At 65, I have learned one of life's greatest lessons. True happiness comes from being intentional. It comes from deciding how I spend my time, who I allow into my life, and how I prioritize my well-being. For much of my life, I felt obligated to maintain relationships that drained me, to say yes when I wanted to say no, and to engage in social interactions out of habit rather than genuine desire. But as I've grown older, I've realized that my time and energy are precious, and I have the right to protect them. Avoiding certain neighbors, limiting my interactions with toxic family members, or choosing solitude over forced socialization isn't about bitterness or isolation. It's about self-respect and inner peace. It's about choosing joy over obligation and authenticity over societal expectations. And the beautiful thing? Once I started making these choices, my life became so much more fulfilling. I no longer feel burdened by meaningless interactions or drained by relationships that no longer serve me. Instead, I spend my days in ways that bring me happiness, purpose, and tranquility. A question for you now. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever made a similar decision to protect your peace? Have you ever stepped away from certain relationships or situations to prioritize your well-being? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's support each other on this journey. And if this video resonated with you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Senior Life Unlocked, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's continue building a life of peace, freedom, and fulfillment on our own terms.